Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Lumio 101 series. No doubt you found us through the three-part series, Building Connections That Matter in Remote Learning. So this is a follow-up, and there's going to be 3 of these. So if you're not joining us live, that's fine. It's going to be a how-to walkthrough anyway. And if you do want to join live, if you have questions and you see this recording later, don't fret. There is another session on Friday and another one next week. Okay, so I'm going to get started. Like I said at the start, you don't need to join my Lumio class, but if you do, I would recommend joining on my phone. So using the camera to scan the QR code and join 313-913. But it's not essential today because you're not interacting with me today. You're actually creating your own account and your own content. So let's get started. I'm going to make this bigger. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just go through our agenda. So the first thing we're going to do is create an account, then we're going to build a lesson, and then we're going to walk through what the student experience is. So we're really going to do some hand-holding today and really take you through nice and slowly what Lumio is, how to set up an account, how to build a lesson, and what it looks like for the student experience. Okay, so I've popped in this YouTube. You will get a copy of this lesson. So if you are looking back over this recording, don't stress, you do get this copy and it is all the how-tos. So in this video, and I'm not going to play it right now, but in this video, in this YouTube that I've put in here, you can see it's a little video that shows you what a Lumio is. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that there for you to have a look at afterwards. Okay, so what is Lumio? Lumio is a piece of software, a cloud-based software that allows you to transform content that you already have or start to create something new. So if you've got PDFs or PowerPoints or Google Slides or old notebooks, you can upload them into Lumio and you can edit them and adjust them and enhance them with gamification and assessment and collaborative activities. If you don't have content, that's fine. We have a whole range of ready-made content that's already there, free for you to use. Or you can start building your own if you're really creative and you want to build your own content or edit and customize the content that you already have or that is available to you to suit what you need in your classroom. You can also enhance the learning. So in your PDFs and your PowerPoints, you can actually add videos and ready-made resources, gamification. You can add voice recordings to it to add scaffolding and support for your students. So you can really enhance that lesson, particularly in remote learning as well as in face-to-face lessons. The reason Lumio is so popular is that it enables teachers a really easy and lovely way to engage your students in the learning, in that active learning phase with collaboration, games and activities. And then finally, it allows you to deliver lessons synchronously or asynchronously. So you can deliver lessons live in face-to-face or remote or on demand. Okay, so the way to create an account, I'm going to minimize this screen and I'm going to give you a student view. So the first thing we're going to do, I've set these instructions up in there for you so that you can walk through. We're also in our email that follows this, we're also going to send it to you in a PDF. So if you want to, you can print it out and have it next to you or hand it out to staff if you are supporting your staff in setting up a Lumio account. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through it today. Now feel free to open another tab on your laptop. I'm in an incognito window so that I can be logged in and not logged in at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to loom.io, so LUM.io. And my keyboard's taking a little while to wake up because it is Monday morning. So LUM, LUM.io, Lumio, and just press enter. Now what that's going to do is it's going to take you to a sign up page. Now if you have already got an account, then that's great. Don't stress, it will just sync with that account. If you have Notebook, the desktop software, your school may have already provisioned your email address, which is great. So it will automatically sync up with your school account. If you don't have an account and you are just trying this for the first time, then that's perfectly fine. you actually get to try and use Lumio for free for up to 50 gigs, which is about 10 lessons. And so what I'd like you to do is click here, get started for free, or down here in the middle here. So get started for free. And what you can see is it's going to bring up a smart account welcome sign. So you will either choose sign in with Google or sign in with Microsoft. Now, it doesn't, we recommend that you use your school email if you've got one. And in New South Wales and Victoria, it's generally more often than not, the Google account that you will use. So once you sign in with your Google account, it'll ask you to pop in your email address. Now, I won't do this because I've already got this session, but what you can see over here is it'll ask you to sign in with Google, and it'll say add your email address, add your password. If your school has an extra firewall, or if you work for the department, you will have the department's firewall come up, and then all you do is pop in your email address and your password again, and then it will come to here. Choose your display name. Now that's the display name that will pop up here, Mrs. Monster's class, or it'll pop up on the students' devices. So it's whatever you want your class to be called. I call mine Mrs. Monsters, but my other one that I use is Mrs. Woolno. And then press next. It'll ask you whether you're a minor or an adult. Now, the reason for that is that you can actually set up free accounts for your students, and I've done this with my students. They love it. So the reason that they love it is because it's a really safe way for them to build presentations that involve YouTube, but also it allows them to become creators of content. So they can create games and they can create activities for their peers to complete and do. And my students have loved this feature in remote learning. They've loved being able to come up with ideas on how to take their learning that they learned yesterday and turn it into an activity that their friends can actually do tomorrow. So you're obviously going to click adult, and then you agree to the terms, and then you click finish. What will come next is your introduction video. So I'm just going to stay on this page so that you can see it, because this is my library here. So what you'll see is that it will have the name of your class, and at the top it'll have your class ID. And what you'll see is that when you come into it, first and foremost, you'll have a YouTube video that'll explain a lot of things about a Smart Learning Suite. Absolutely watch it. If you want, you can watch it at a later time, so you can minimize that for now if you'd like, or open it in YouTube so you can watch it later or after this webinar. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop out, and I'm actually going to show you a little tour around Lumio. So this here is the Lumio library. This is essentially where all my lesson content will sit and where I access all of my content. You can see that there's my name, Mrs. Monster's class, and here's my class ID. Yours is going to be different. So that is the class ID that all the students use to actually sign into your class. So whether they're on the iPad or on a phone or on a laptop at home or in class using the student devices, the way that they join is through 313913. Now, you'll notice that at the start I had a QR code that negated having to go to hellosmart.com, because that's how they get to your class. They go to hellosmart.com, and we have those cards available for you as well, where you can just write in your class code if you like. So we'll send that through in the email after this webinar. Now, the other things that I want to take you through really, really quickly is edit class. So if you edit the class, you can rename the class. So I don't have to stay with Mrs. Monster's class. I can rename that class if I like. If I don't like my class ID, so 313913, it rolls off the tongue, but it took me a little while to find that number. So all you do is keep clicking reset class ID, and then that number will actually change until you're happy with that number. You can edit the class banner, but the only person that sees that class banner is you. And then you can manage guest access. Now that is just for those educators who would like their students to only access their lesson through signing in with an email address. And we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the student access. So you can actually turn join guest off and make them sign in using their student email address and password. Okay, coming down, what you'll be able to see is there's 3 buttons. Now this one is really significant. It is the training, and it's really great training. So it's all about skill based. So if I'm wanting to know how to add a YouTube to a PDF, then I find add a YouTube. And it will actually take me, and I'll give you a look at it now whilst it's loading. It will actually take me to a little page. So you'll see here, it'll break up into the activities. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in here and watch. And that'll give me a series of YouTubes that will actually teach me how to use YouTube. But if I wanted to learn how, or actually go a little bit deeper, it actually has cheat cards, which is really, really handy. So what you'll see is maybe I want to insert an ad-free video online. So what you'll see is it's got this cheat card. So you've got steps to sign into Lumio. So all of the steps on how to add the YouTube. It's got instructional ideas as well. So how to enhance, engage, enhance, and extend. So giving you ideas on how to use that feature. And then in some of them, they'll actually have video playlists up here. So you can see import a file and add interactivity. So this is how I add a Google Slides or a PDF or a PowerPoint, and how I add interactivity. And you can see that there's a video playlist there as well. So you've got the 3, you've got the steps, the instructional ideas, and the how-to videos, which is super, super handy if you are learning Lumio. And it has all by skill set. So you can see how to enhance, how to engage. So this is how to create handouts and workspaces, and then how to deliver. So if you're not sure how to deliver to your students, you can see that there and go and have a look. And then how to share with your teachers or with your students, because sharing is really important, whether you're sharing to your students to be able to access it offline, so when you're not running the lesson, or how to share it with your teachers so that they can use your amazing content as well. So that's the training. This Explore Resources is fantastic. So if you come into Explore Resources, this is ready-made content made by teachers for teachers. You have a search bar up here. So if you do want to search for content, specific content, all you need to do is pop in your search. We do have featured, so these are the favorites of the week, and they change weekly. We've got our collections, which are some of the most heavily used content that teachers have been using over the last 6 months, and then they're broken down into topics. So you can see there's fractions there, reading and writing, multiplication, sight words and phonics, art and music, templates. These are great and have actually been a lifesaver for me. I've really loved using some of these templates, which is fantastic, and instructional toolkits. So lots and lots of content there for you to use. Now, if I wanted some of this, let's have a look at, we'll go into one of these collections. So if I go into distance learning, you can see that there's lots of content in here already. Most of this is for on demand, which means I would set and allow my students to work through this without me running this lesson. So these may be follow-ups, these may be reflections on learning, these may be practice. It may be part of my flipped learning activity. So if I wanted to say do addition facts to 20, now some of this is primary because I'm a primary teacher, but there is lots of high school secondary content as well. So if we have a look at these activities, I can see that there's lots of games. My students can do it without me there because these games already have the feedback activated, which means if they get it incorrect, it'll let them know and then they can readjust. So they're getting that automated feedback, which is fantastic. I can preview all of these games. These are wonderful interactive games that my students now need to play. And this activity is actually a multiplayer game. So on their iPad, they can actually play up to 2 players. On the smartboard, they can play up to 4. And they can play it with parents. So really nice way to add that home school connection. Now, if I want this content, this is great content, all I do is save to my library. Now, what that's going to do is it's actually going to push it into my library, ready to be used. And I'll show you how you can use that a little bit later down the track. So that's where you can find some content. Now, there are other areas you can find content, and I will show you that. But let's just keep exploring this homepage for a second. Now, if I wanted to upload content I already had, or build a lesson on the fly, or build a lesson from scratch, all I do is go to add activities, this green bar here. Now I'm just going to bring up this side for me. Excellent. Okay. So what you can do, what you can see here is this is where I add content. Now, if I wanted to add a PDF or a PowerPoint or a Google Slides, all I would need to do is add from my local storage. Or if I've got my Google Drive connected, I can add directly from Google Drive. So I can go and find my Google Slides or any PDFs or content that's in there. I'm going to go from local storage and I'm going to go to my desktop, and here's my Lumio London Landmarks. Now that's a PDF. So that's a PDF that I've downloaded from the internet and that I'm now wanting to use here in Lumio. I want to be able to enhance it with some YouTubes and some interactivity and some games, and then I want to be able to share it with my students, regardless of whether they're in front of me or face-to-face, or maybe I'm delivering in a Beyond Blended connected situation. So it's going to say, here's all the pages. Do you want them all? I'm going to say yes, but maybe I don't want that page. So in a PDF, normally you wouldn't be able to delete a page. In Lumio, when you use it in Lumio, you absolutely can. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add all of those pages. Now, this has been my favorite feature, is that you can actually add PDFs and PowerPoints into an already existing lesson. So if I wanted to, I could come in here and let's say I want to do a different title page. I can come in here to import resource, and I can again add either a PDF, a PowerPoint, or a Google Slides from my local storage computer. Or if I have if I've got some lessons in my library, my Lumio library already that I want to use, all I say is from my library. Now, this has been my favorite because I've been pulling pages left, right, and center into my lessons because I like to merge them and use them. So I have a couple of template pages. Maybe I want to change the title page. So I like these templates, so I'm going to jump into these ones and have a look at which pages I might want to bring in. So I'm not going to select them all. I might select that one as a title page. Maybe I want a quote or a content page. So you can see that I can select and deselect any pages I want from any lesson, regardless of whether it's content on my computer in the form of a PDF, a PowerPoint, or a notebook, or if you're using Google Slides, or if I wanted to, I could pull one or more pages from pre-existing content. So if I'm building a lesson on multiplication and I've got a PDF, a PowerPoint, and I've found 3 or 4 different lessons in the Explore content on fractions or multiplication, my apologies, I can merge all that together in the one lesson really quickly and really easily. And it's just a simple matter of pressing add. And now I can add my own spin on it. So maybe I'm going to delete that title page and I'm going to call this one London Landmarks. Okay. All right. Now, the other thing that you can do in this add content, and let's have a little look at this, is I can add a YouTube. So adding YouTube, now if you're not sure, you can click these little hats and it'll actually show you a little video on what it means to be able to add that feature and functionality, or what that feature and functionality is. If I wanted to add a YouTube, all I do is click YouTube. It is a white hat search. So no inappropriate content is going to be showed up. And it's also going to protect yourself and your students from all of the hazards that come with YouTube. Now, YouTube landmarks, there we go. Now, YouTube, there we go, that's the one I want. So YouTube is a wonderful tool to use in the classroom, but it is quite scary to use as a teacher because you cannot control the ads at the front, the ticker tape ads over the top, the YouTubes that it's advertising underneath, and will play, and you can't protect them from the browser, so the side panels and the comments underneath. But when you use it in Lumio, you can, and you can also add it into your PDFs, your PowerPoints, and any lesson content that you've got in there. So I'm going to preview this one, make sure it's the one I want. I know that's the one I want, so I'm going to X that, I'm going to select it, and I'm going to add it. Now what that's done is it's ripped it out of YouTube and put it into your PDF that's inside Lumio. Now that is a really, really wonderful way to use YouTube safely especially in remote learning, but also in face-to-face lessons, because I can play this on my board in my Lumio account and not have to worry about covering up or doing anything. And just so you can see it, if I play it, it's not going to play the ad at the front. It's not going to play the ticker tape ads over the top. It won't advertise YouTube's underneath, which is fantastic. All right, so what I might want to do is I might want to come in here and let's get active. Let's activate some prior knowledge. So you can see down here, we're just going to jump down for a second and have a look at some ready-made resources. So these are resources that have already been made for you to use. Now, my favorite is graphic organizers. Why? Because I spend all my money on Teachers Paid Teachers finding or spending all my time building these types of templates. Now, these templates are all customizable. I've seen there's a story map there, which is wonderful. There's a tree chart. For our older students, there's Cornell note-taking, brainstorming. I use that one a lot. We use this one in narratives, cause and effect, but also in science, which is wonderful. And so you can see all of these templates are here and ready to go. So maybe I might want to, and again, if you see the little hat, it's a little video on how to use this template. I'm going to use the brainstorming web. And what I'm going to do is I might ask them to landmarks that they know. And so my students can now, not yet, but when I turn it into an activity, can actually add content. So what I want to do is I want my students to come in and choose a bubble and pop in a landmark that they know. So what I want to do is I actually want to turn this into an activity. And so what you can see here is this little magic button up here. This allows me to either turn it into a handout or a workspace. Now, a handout is an individual activity. That's the equivalent of me printing out this, template and handing it out to my students and them filling it out and then handing it back to me so I can mark it. So that gives everybody a copy of this template. A workspace is where I can, as the teacher, when I'm running it, decide whether I want to use it as a small group or a whole class activity. If I use it as a small group activity, that means that I can choose how many groups I want and who's going to be in each group. So it will auto-populate my students into groups, and then I can move my students around accordingly if I'd like. And then what that will do is it will give them one workspace. So it'll give them a digital copy, and all of those students in that team or in that small group will actually work on the same piece of content, which is wonderful. If I do a whole class, it means that the whole class is working on the same page. So I'm going to turn it into a workspace, and just for me, so I know, whole class. So now that's an interactive activity. So that's a template I pulled out of the content, I popped it in here, and then I've turned it into an interactive collaborative activity. Okay. What I might want to do, and let's come back and have a look at these contents. So you've got graphic organizers. The other things that you've got are manipulatives. So let's have a look at the manipulatives. These are all fantastic interactive templates, for want of a better word. So if we have a look at the hundreds chart, you can see they've got a hundreds chart. They've got some equation spaces over there. These little dots are infinitely cloned, as is all of these operations. And you can see that the students are interacting. You can customize this any way you like. For example, making words. The other day, I deleted all the letters except for the letters that we're focusing on in prep. And my preppies had to make as many words that they knew using those letters. So we had S-A-M-P, S-A-M-P-N, I think, oh, T, my apologies. So I had all of those letters and they had to make as many words as they knew with those letters. Now I've seen the reverse, where teachers have deleted the letters and they've actually put, they've done build a snowman, which where the students have to guess the letter. And if it's wrong, then they start drawing a picture of that particular snowman. And if the teacher draws a snowman before they've guessed all the letters or the word, then the teacher wins, and vice versa. If the students guess the word before the teacher's drawn the snowman, then they win. So there's lots and lots of different ways you can use this. This is also a wonderful way to get the students to make words that they know for that particular topic. So if I was going to say landmarks, we might make words like man-made or natural, permanent or historic, important. So word walls that match with that particular topic. Things like, if you wanted to, in science, you could do gravity, and what words do we associate with gravity? So really wonderful ways to use those templates. For our music teachers, this one is an absolute win. You can type in the song, you can write over the top if you'd like. These are all infinitely cloned notes, so you can use those to build a song together or have students. You've got number lines, sorting shapes. Now, I've seen a high school teacher actually use the pattern blocks to actually get their students to build a piece of code. So to show how they would build a piece of code, geared clocks, fractions, wonderful, wonderful activities like that. And if you want the calendar, or the base 10 blocks, which I love. So they're all the manipulatives that you can use as well. And you can put all of this content into your PDFs, your PowerPoints, your Google Slides, or even your old notebooks. Now, the other two categories you've got here are activating prior knowledge and questioning and reflecting. Now, I like to think of these as entry and exit tickets. So your activating prior knowledge or entry tickets are ways to engage the learner in tuning into the topic. So they're already sorted out for you. So they're already built. Blue is a shout it out. That is where students will send up content to the board. You have to run it live. The students will add their content, and then you can talk to that content and engage in a class discussion around that content. Really, really lovely way to enable all students to have a voice and have that voice and opinion and contribution validated. Response is an assessment. Now, if you're not sure, again, just press the little video. It's where the students will be asked assessment questions and they have to answer on their devices. Now, as the teacher, you can customize this. So you can add your own questions in there, and you can also indicate which one is correct. So at the end of the day, or at the end of this response, you'll actually have a marked assessment, and you can use that on the fly, which I love, because the worst thing about running assessments is the 45 minutes wasted for the students to actually do the assessment, and then you have to take it home to mark it, and you can't use it to direct your teaching and learning that day. You have to wait until those results are collated. So this enables me to quickly do a check-in with my students and understand where they're at, and then differentiate my instructions after that. And then again, handout activities. Now we saw them with the little magic wand up there. The handout activities, if you'll remember, is an individual activity for each student, each of your students, and that allows each student to have a copy of this template to actually fill out their own content, and then the teacher will then be able to get a copy of their content after that. Questioning and reflecting is obviously an exit ticket. So there's a few more in here that you can see, and they're being added to all of the time. So again, you've got shout it out, plus minus interesting, 3 facts, 2 questions, 1 opinion, which I love at the end of lessons, because they always have little nuggets of knowledge that that you don't actually often get to see in the thick of the lesson, because you are really focused on supporting and extending those students, and this allows them to really shine and showcase their knowledge and their thinking. Do you agree or disagree? How do you feel about the topic? And then so many templates for handouts. So again, these are individual activities, not collaborative, because this is a knowledge check. So summarize what you've learned. I love the share 3 things you've learned. This also gives you 1 thing you wonder about. You've got the 3, 2, 1 countdowns, cause and effect. 6-word summary is actually really interesting if you run it with your students. And so wonderful exit tickets to check the knowledge or question and reflect on their learning. Okay, so they're the ready-made resources. Feel free to go in, pull them out, add them to a PDF, or even just on the fly on its own, just to test it out and see what it's like. If we come into here, this is where it really gets interesting. So yes, you can add a new page, and that will add a blank page for you that you can add images to. Now, the amazing thing about this is the Bing Safe Search. So yes, you can search your desktop for images. So you can go into your pictures and you can add a picture. This is one that we did. This is an example of a lesson we did in a handout on this week's book recommendations. So you can add images. You can change the text if you want. You've got, you know, your normal text editing tools there. The little hand is turning it back into a selector. You can see there's your magic wand. So if I wanted to turn this page into a handout or a workspace, I could. But if I go back to the pictures, I can paste a web link. So if I was going to go to a book recommendation, so we've got Pride and Prejudice there. So if I was going to go to one of these Pride and Prejudice pages and I've got a link that I want to go to, I can just copy that link and paste it in here, and then there's the link there. So I can, if I want my students to do some research, so the other day we used it to have our students research particular famous Australians in Australian history. We gave them the options and had them had a picture of them. So we used actually a template. We used a 4 graphic organizer. We used this one. So each individual Australian that we gave them the option had their picture and a link. So that our students could go and actually research that significant Australian and then write their research topic on it. But the other thing that you can search for is Bing Safe Search. So I don't have to go out and go and find an image on the internet and save it. I can actually go into Bing Safe Search, and these are all white labeled images, which means they're white hat images, which means they are safe and they have been deemed as safe. And also they fall under the Creative Commons license, which means they're free to use. So if I wanted to pop in one of our significant Australians, we are in the throes of the Paralympics at the moment and have just finished the able-bodied Olympics. And Kathy might be one of our significant Australians that we're researching. So I might place in an image of Kathy Freeman. I might find a lovely biography of Kathy Freeman that I want my students to explore. So we might go to this website. So I'm going to add this link in, and then I'm going to pop this underneath. And now my students can, or if I wanted to, I could add a text box and say Kathy Freeman. Move that down a little bit, and obviously you can make this as pretty as you like. So right there and then all I need to do is turn this into an individual handout or a whole class activity, so my students can go away and use it and have a look at which Australian or they want to research and do their information report or build their lesson on. So my students actually built a lesson in Lumio based on their famous Australian that they wanted to teach the class about, and they had lots of games and labels. So this was a label diagram, so it spoke about the 2000 Olympics, the different flags that we had, who Kathy was, and so it was a really lovely way for them for me to guide their research, but also for them to express their learning and how they like to learn. So that's the images. So again, you can go from your desktop, you can go to a web link, and you can also Bing Safe Search and find all of the images in there, which is wonderful. Now, the other thing that I would like to show you is Shout It Out. Now, Shout It Out is a wonderful activity. You've heard me say it, and if you have been on any of our webinars, you've seen Shout It Out in action. It's one of my favorite activities because it allows me to do check-ins. It allows me to get my students to engage. So here's my student at school or at home, and they're writing content and it's going up onto the screen. So you can use it as a brainstorming idea where every student can support building that knowledge and having their opinion and contribution added to the page. This shows you how to build it really quickly, and then your students then get their voices validated and their contributions validated, which is really important. So the way you build that is you just go into Shout It Out. Now, what you can do the first thing, I always like to add the question because it sits at the top. So what we might do is we're on Famous Australian. So so what famous Australian do you know? Now I could do randomized or I could do categories. So for instance, if we wanted to, the other day in prep, we had students going around finding pictures of things that start with H, M, and S. And so they had to take pictures and send it up, because you can see here contributions, I can either do text or images. We also had students doing simple, compound, and complex sentences. So we had a simple, a compound, and a complex, and we chose a theme. So they had to write, so we were camping, so they had to write a simple sentence on camping, they had to write a compound sentence on camping, and they had to write a complex sentence on camping. So you can choose either have students add text or images. Now, images just enables them to search their library of images, go to the web and find an image, or they can take an image. You can give them contributions. So I might only want to give them one contribution, so they only tell me one person they know, or send up one image that they know, or 3 or 4. And then students' names, show or hide. Now, my students, I tend to find that my preppies to about year 2 or year 3 really love seeing their names attached to their contributions. And what I found was most students from year 4 onwards are less inhibited to answer if their names are not attached. But you can turn that on and off after the fact. So if you run the session without the students' names on the comments, you can turn them on at a later date or during the lesson if you wanted to. And likewise, you can turn them off if you've got them showing. Now, you can go classic or you can customize it. So if I customize it, again, it makes it super easy. I can come in here and I can add an image. So I can browse an image. Again, I can find it on my desktop. I can do a Bing Safe search, and I might do Australia. And what it'll do is it'll find this image and it'll pop it in, and you can size it. Now mine's probably a little bit too big, but that's okay. There's my Australian image, and that's what their answers are all going to pop up on. So again, super quick, super easy. And my keyboard's decided to run out of battery immediately. Helpful. Okay. Now, finally, what I want to show you is the response and the game-based activities. Now, the response is an assessment. We did speak about that a little bit earlier. So this is where you would actually create assessments for your students. Now, these can be pre or post, or formative and summative. And this is what it looks like on the board in the classroom or on your teacher dashboard. So you don't have to run it from the smartboard, you can run it from your laptop. But our students would then actually interact with that content or that assessment on their devices. So you can watch that video just to go through it. It's a nice step-by-step, but the way that you can do it is you can just pop in. It gives you the different types of questions. So the 5 different types, you've got multiple choice, true or false, multiple answer, polar opinion, and short answer. Now, if you go multiple choice, you can add your question in, you can add an image, and you can add your answers. And your answers can be images. So if you are teaching preps or littlies, there you can write the letter S and then have pictures, and they have to figure out which picture tells them the letter S. Now, to change the answer, so this green little highlighter actually indicates which answer is correct. Now, that's really important to get that right, because I have messed that up a couple of times in my haste to build, because that will actually mark it for you. So it'll save you so much time in the marking process. And then you add a question. So each time you want to add a question, add it up here. If you want to move the questions around, you absolutely can. And then I'll go yes. And look, I said image, but we'll go really, really quickly so that I'm conscious of time. Apple, dog. Okay, now I'm going to delete this second question. So what I want to do is delete the question. Excellent. And again, if you add a question and then change the question, true. Next, you can add a title and instructions. So for my students, when I'm running it in class, I actually give them the instructions on what they need to do once they're finished, because they will all finish at different times, because obviously they're not all going to be answering the questions at the same time. So some might finish sooner than others, and so I give them instructions on what they need to do next, whether that's silent reading or if they need to go and do their finish their work from previous in the day, or if there's an extra extension activity I want, and then we finish. And that's our response. So that's how quick and easy it is to build a response. The other one I want to show you is our game-based activities. Now there are 12, I want to say. 2, 4, 6, yep, 12 activities. So these are all games that you can add into your PDF, into your PowerPoint, into your Google Slides, into your pre-existing notebooks, or other content that you found in Explore Resources. So you can see I can build a match map. And again, if I'm not sure, I can have a look at the video. Right, so I need to match one side up with the other, and if they're matches, then they get them right. If they're not matches, then they'll either be told that they're incorrect or they'll bounce out. So you can see they got a couple right and then they've readjusted, which is really great. So it automates the feedback as well. Now, some of them are games that they can play or need to play with another person. So Game Show, they can play with another person. Monster Quiz and Team Quiz, you have to run live. And that's because the teacher puts the students into teams, and then the teams then answer assessment type questions to hatch a baby monster in Monster Quiz, and Team Quiz to win, to beat the circle. So they have to fill a circle. So it's very much a, looks like a gear on a car. So it's really souped up. It looks very cool. So you can watch the video to have a look at that. Word search is great. So really super simple. If you want to add a word search, you just type in all your words, and then it will actually, you can turn off show your word list and make it easy, moderate, or difficult. And you can choose your grid size. So you can go super, super large if you really want, which is wonderful. Really great for vocab, really, really great for spelling, those types of activities. Rank order I've seen be used so many different times, but just to show you how quick and easy it is to make one, I'm just going to go to fill in the blanks. So I might, let's stick with Kathy Freeman. All right, and I'm going to take some content that I've got. Kathy Freeman was born, so I'm going to drop out Queensland, so I'm going to define the blanks. Queensland, she became involved at a very young age, so she got involved in athletics. Freeman, and how old was she? So I'm going to really quickly just make this a comprehension activity. So what I want to do is I can say they're going to check the answers when prompted, which means they have to read all the way through. So you can see this is where they get the feedback. So are they going to get feedback when they're finished and they have to click on a check answers? Are they going to get it instantly, which means if they drag up an answer and it's not right, it will bounce out? Or if you want to use it as an assessment and get them to screenshot and upload to Seesaw or Google Classroom, I say don't check. That's how I use it as an assessment, which is great. But I'm going to do when prompted because I want my students to get the feedback. And if they're doing a comprehension, I want them to make sure it makes sense before they check it. So I'm going to press next, and now I get to choose my theme. Now, if I really wanted to, I could, again, customize it like you saw me do earlier, or I can choose a different theme. So I might choose this theme, and let's have a look at it. And that's how quick and easy it is to build a game. So I can pull up these, and because I've said to tell me at the end, it's going to say check answers. It's going to tell me which ones are wrong. So I might change them around. There we go. And let's check answers. Now I've got it right. So that's a really, really great way to have students get automatic feedback when they're solidifying knowledge. Okay, and then finally in this section, I want to show you this one because this one's one of my favorites. Now, if you're looking for content, so say I'm looking for, let's go fractions because we spoke about multiplication the other day, earlier. So let's go fractions. Now, this is content that we have in Smart Exchange. So you're looking for content in Smart Exchange. Smart Exchange is a huge repository of content that has been built. It's kind of like the Explore resources, only a lot larger. So what we're doing is we're searching for that content. Now, I might find some really great activities and games in here that I might want to add to my lesson on mathematics. At the moment, this is a bit of a BITSA lesson, but if I say I go, oh, this is great, I'm going to have a look at this one. I want to see the game, fraction, model, fraction. Yep, that's the activity I want. I'm going to save it to my lesson. What it's going to do is it's going to put it straight into my lesson, which is super time saving, because if you have ever used Notebook before, you'll remember the time when you had to download all of the lessons and then pull the pages over. No more. In here, you just quickly pop them in, because we don't have time as teachers. Time is one of those commodities that we just don't have enough of. So what we wanted to do was make a really quick, flexible and agile way for you to build content on the fly without having to recreate the wheel, and customize it for you. Now, the final thing that I might want to do for my students is I might want to add scaffolding or voice instructions. So you can see here on any page, doesn't matter what page it is, I can actually add a voice recording to that page for my students. Now, this might be me reading the content for those students that need that extra support. It might be giving them verbal instructions on what to do on this page, so that if I am using this as an on-demand lesson, or if I push it to student paced and allow my students to actually work through this lesson without me, whilst I'm working with other students, I can add voice instructions there for them so that they don't need to check with me what they need to do. And then I can listen to it, I can continue recording, or I can delete and start over. If you're familiar with Seesaw, that has the same recording effect, which is so great, because if I've paused it, I can continue on with my instructions afterwards. So we all get interrupted, or we all have to stop or double check. So all you have to do if you're doing the recording, if you're in the middle of it, press pause, and then you can start again. And it'll sit to the side. So it won't sit on the page, it'll sit off to the side, which I also think is fantastic, because it's not taking up that, that really valuable space for content and interactive activities for the students. It'll sit to the side. And you can do that on every page. It doesn't matter whether it's a shout it out or a response or a game or a YouTube, you can add your voice to it. All right, now finally, you can actually change the name. So I'm going to call it a test lesson, and then I'm going to finish editing. Now, the thing that I will say is this: you saw it automatically saving. So as you start building, it automatically saves. Doesn't matter if your computer crashes, if you get interrupted and you need to rush off out to playground duty. It doesn't matter. It will automatically save as you're building, and you can come back anytime to continue on. And here you can see there's my lesson there, and that's really fantastic. You can see that I've got lots of lessons. At the moment, we don't have a way to pop them in folders. The only way to do that is to actually give your classes a code, and then they can come in alphabetical order, but folders are coming. Now, the final thing is I want to show you how to share. So here you can see I can edit, which means it'll take me back into that edit pane. I can make a copy just in case I want to use it, but then edit it for different reasons, which I've done several times, you can see. Or you can share a link. Now, share a link is how I share the content. Now, you can share content to teachers and give them the content to use themselves, or you can share to students. Now, to share to students, all I need to do is copy that link, and then I can post it in my Google Classroom or my Seesaw. Now, the way to do that is exactly the same way as how you would post any content. You go to add, post student work, link. I did it again. There we go. Link, pick. And there's my Lumio lesson. And what I can do is I can add that if I want, or if you, and I can assign it to all my students. This is my example class, and I can add it to a folder. I use folders in Seesaw. So if I wanted to, I could add it in the folder. And then I'm just going to tick it here. Oh, I've started a new folder. Okay, my apologies. There we go. I wasn't concentrating as I was doing it. Now you can see there's my Lumio account. So my students can actually click that link there. You can do it in assign an activity as well. It's up to you how you like to post your activities if you want. And you can see I can create a new activity. I can add the links in here and then, or your multimedia examples in your links. There we go, and tick, and it'll be the same. So it's the same process. You can assign the activity. For Google Classroom, it is exactly the same. And you can see, I'm going to quickly jump into my demo SLS. And here's my classroom. And again, it's exactly the same. I can announce or add classwork. So I can create classwork, I can create an assignment. I like to add my link here, add link, give it a title, some instructions, and assign. And again, that's a quick and easy way to add the content, because we all know that it's really important to keep the content streamlined for our students. So ensure that our students are accessing their content from the one process, the one place. So if you're using Teams, happy days. Lumio actually has an app inside Teams, so you don't actually even have to come out. You can have Lumio opened up in Teams for your students, which is incredible. Seesaw, Google Classroom, any sort of LMS, you can do that exact same way. You can share that link. Now, the other way to share the link is to teachers, and all you do is copy that link and email it to them. And then they will click on the link and it will put a copy of your lesson in their library, which is wonderful. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to finish off by showing you the final pages. So all of these lessons, so I'm going to send this lesson to you. It actually has everything that we've covered. So it has a walkthrough of the different types of resources you can import, or a little walkthrough and the map of the activities that are there, the different types of activities that you can add into it, different types of game-based activities that are there, and the titles of all of them. So it's got a big walkthrough for you, 1-minute challenges for you to walk yourself through if you want, or if you're running training for your staff, you can actually use this and build it as their training resource. So you can use it as their training resource. I've got instructions for you on how your students will join. So your students go to Hello Smart, they join as guests or sign in, they type your class ID and they pop their name in. And again, it's a larger walkthrough. So how to get your students in here, you launch your lesson, there's your class ID. So here's my class ID. If you wanted to have a look, that's where you find it. You can bring it up for your students. And again, I've got that all stepped out for you. So different ways for students to join your class, so they can join as a guest, or they can sign in using their school email address, and the same way you have done it as well. All right, and then here's your 5 easy steps to get started. So start, enhance, engage, deliver, and share. So you can start using existing content or with a new page. You can add games, you can add YouTubes, you can create workspaces or handouts. Use your class code to deliver it and have your students access it via the student link or join by Hello Smart. So this lesson will actually be sent to you. There's a couple of little interactive games for you to do. Don't forget, what we've covered in this lesson is quite a lot. So we've created a Lumio account. We've walked through how to make a lesson or how to add content to a lesson. And we've quickly brushed over, or you have even joined us, some of you have joined us for our Lumio lesson. So you've actually seen how to join us as a student. And then finally, feel free to get started. These are links. So when you get this lesson, you can actually get started and explore this training resource. You can attend a webinar. So we've got lots of webinars running like this. We run them every Wednesday. At the moment, we're running them several times a week for our remote learning support. But you can join a webinar. We have lots of content and information. They're all run by educators. You can become a smart ambassador. That means that you share the amazing work that you do in your classroom with others, and you get lots and lots of rewards and wonderful smart collateral. So lanyards, coffee mugs, teddies, lots of wonderful teaching resources to use in your classroom. And then if you want to follow us for any more lesson ideas, please join us on socials. You can see Go Lumio is the hashtag. So if you want to follow that, lots of teachers are posting in Twitter, Instagram, with their lesson content and ideas that they're using with Lumio. Hopefully this has helped today. Thank you for joining. If there are any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. I will answer them now. I can see that there's no questions at this stage, but if you do, please feel free to pop them in the chat. And I thank you for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful week. I believe it is week 8 or 7. I keep losing track of which week it is. But thank you for joining me on this Monday morning. If you are interested, we are running a second part of our series, Building Connections That Matter in Remote Learning, this afternoon with myself. It's all about engaging and exciting your students into your remote learning. So feel free to join us then, but otherwise, have a great week and thanks for joining.